You are listening to CPA Review and more. You are listening to CPA Review and more. You are listening to CPA Review and more. You are listening to CPA Review and more.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you're joining from. And thank you for listening to this episode of CPA Review and More with your host, Phil Yaeger. I'm your producer and director here at the Yaeger Studios, Rob Medford, and together we are bringing you the #1 podcast for CPAs and CPA candidates. If you're new to the show, I'd like to be the first to thank you for checking us out. We're excited to have you as part of our listenership. If you're here because you've already heard our show and you're a continued listener, we thank you for the ongoing support. It's always greatly appreciated. If you're in the market for a CPA review course or simply want to know more about what Yaeger CPA Review has to offer, check out our website at yaegercpareview.com or call our office and we'll answer any questions you might have. The link and telephone number will be in the description of this episode. Here at Team Yaeger, we're excited to tell you about our new Yaeger CPA Review subscription format. It's the same great Yaeger CPA Review course that you know and love on an all-new, month-to-month, no long-term commitment subscription format. But without any further delay, I'm going to pass the microphone on over to your host, Phil Yaeger.
Well, thank you again, Rob, and thank you everyone for listening to this from wherever you are throughout the country. And we do have people actually in foreign countries, and we appreciate you being a listener. So today, we search the globe for guests, and we always want to get the best people. And today, have we got the best? You bet. All right. We have Amy Vetter, and Amy is actually a person that goes around the country. All right. She's asked to be keynote speakers. All right. No one's ever asked me to be a keynote speaker, but Amy is a keynote speaker, and she's actually written, all right, here's some of her books in Integrated Advisory Services, Business Balance. Is this correct? Am I getting these right?
Business Balance and Bliss.
Okay. And the B3 method.
Well, that's part of that book, yes.
Oh, that's part of it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And who actually publishes these books? What author? Do you have a company that publishes these books?
So Integrative Advisory Services was published by Wiley.
Oh, wow.
And Business Balance and Bliss was published by my company.
Okay, very good. And you are CEO of the B3 Method. Is that it?
Institute.
Institute. Mm-hmm. And once again, as I said, I want to repeat this 300 times. You're a keynote speaker, all right? And in fact, this week, you were telling me, where were you? You gave a presentation. How many people were there? How many people were at this?
This event was for 500 top real estate agents in the country for Berkshire Hathaway. So
you had 500 agents?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That doesn't bother you talking to 500 people?
No, I get excited. Okay. I enjoy it. I enjoy what I do.
Open mic night. Is that what it is? We get them. And you were in Florida? You tell me you were in Florida?
Yes.
By the way, not at the Motel 6, the Ritz-Carlton.
Yes, right? It was a very nice event.
Now, what do you talk about? All right, give us an idea. When you're invited as a keynote, all right, how long did you speak to these people?
So this session last week my session was called Mindful Technology and Embracing Innovation, Technology, and Human Connection. So that's what that topic is about, because often we go about implementing technology and the latest AI, machine learning, robotics, all of these things that we hear about. And a lot of things that happen is that things get stalled. They don't actually go the way that we hope. And the reason is that we're not really having trouble learning the technology or learning the new business process. It's us internally trying to break past our fear of what this means for us in the future, the new skills we're going to have to learn, maybe worried we're not going to be good enough because we've been an expert in the way that we've done things before. So mindful technology is about incorporating not just the digital transformation in the business, but if you're going to lead people through a transformation, also be thinking about the human side just as much as implementing the technology to ensure that you're getting more human connection, not less, and not creating more stress with the people that work there. And so that session was an hour. And then they asked me to lead a 30-minute meditation with the room as well, so that they could kind of practice that presence of mind. And if they like it, incorporate it into their lives after the conference.
And you went to a bunch of real estate agents, okay? How did you think to them how technology is going to affect them, and perhaps they shouldn't be upset? Is that basically what you're talking to them about?
Well, it's not that you shouldn't be upset. I mean, I think everybody has, the fear of whether you're an accountant, a real estate agent, a lawyer, everybody right now is facing it in their lives. But, in the real estate world, I mean, they're having to compete against a lot of do-it-yourself real estate transactions, right? Like where you could go online, put up your house, do a lot of the things that real estate agents only have the access to do in the past. And so when I talk to accountants, it's really the same issue. We get worried about, like, we've always done the data entry and we've always done all these calculations manually, and all this technology is coming out to speed up that work. And what that really means is us stepping back in our careers and our businesses now and saying, how am I going to differentiate myself? So if the non-value activities went away, and what is my value to a prospective buyer, client, whomever that is, and how am I going to rethink my business for this to be a really exciting new time for me, rather than being afraid of what's coming?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, I hate routine type. It sounds like it'll eliminate that. But this is a question I've asked other people. Where are they going to get the education to know how to deal with artificial intelligence? I mean, who is teaching this?
There's lots of places teaching about, so from an accounting perspective, the AI CPA has a whole slew of education on these areas. I mean, I led a blockchain fundamentals certificate. It's a 2-day online course, and you get a certificate when you're finished, to give you the fundamentals of what's happening, understanding like the terminology and kind of what's happening out there with blockchain. But there's lots of these programs out there as well. And then the other thing is the work that you do, like if you're looking at, I'm going to move forward with technology in my practice, and let's say I want to shift my accounts payable system and how I work with that and have that be on the cloud, then I've got to do my homework, not just be led by a sales pitch on it. But then also many of these companies offer a lot of education and certification programs so that you can really go deep and understand how the technology works alongside your expertise in what you do, so that you can start thinking about what are the additional services I can provide now when my time starts getting freed up with some of these things that used to take so much time for us to do.
Can you give me an example of that? All right. What is something that artificial intelligence can replace and make my life easier and not make my employees feel like they're going to lose their jobs?
So I think it happens in our daily life every day. So, I mean, usually I try to start from there because we don't even realize it's happening. And so when we hear the term artificial intelligence, we get that term seems so big. However, it's happening when we open up an app and that we want to go drive to another location, and it tells us how long it's going to take to get there and what the best route is. That's machine learning. When we're on Hulu and we pick a program to watch, and then it recommends 2 or 3 others based on other things that we've already done, on that platform, that's machine learning. If you've used Google Translate, this is considered deep learning, because basically what Google Translate does is you take an image. Let's say you're in France at a French restaurant, you don't speak French, and you take an image of the menu, those words in French. It takes that image, deciphers it, and then translates it to English so that you can communicate. And what that really does is make the world smaller, that more accessible when we start utilizing these tools. And that, when we bring it into the accounting world, that's really what artificial intelligence is about. So some of it can be just in our general ledger system, where information is being fed in from banks. And our clients or people that maybe are not trained accountants are coding these transactions, and they often code them incorrectly. And then we've been taking all this time to have to undo those transactions and put them in the right spots and so forth, which is really a non-value added tasks. Like, it's better that our time is spent analyzing the data and giving them advice about their business and so forth. So where technology is going is to the place where those transactions feed into an accounting system, but it'll automatically be coded based on all the data that the system has and knows where you normally will fix their transactions and code it to. It's watching that. And that way it can free up your time so that you can spend time with your client, actually communicating with them and helping them in their business and becoming what I call an integrative advisory service, a cherished advisor, where someone cannot imagine not having you as part of their business.
That sounds good for a higher level senior accountant in a firm, all right? That you're eliminating a lot of their routine stuff and they can spend time advising clients, all right? So there's a need, am I correct, for those higher level senior accountants?
I don't know if I agree with you.
Okay.
I think it's at any level now. Well, it's a difference in as far as the way education, correct today, but where education needs to change is that accountants are being trained in advisory skills at the same time as they're being trained in numbers so that they come out ready for the type of work that they're going to be expected to do. That this is going to be expected at an entry level.
So the entry-level accountant won't do the routine services anymore because they'll have the artificial intelligence, but they'll be trained to give advise the clients.
Well, they may not be talking to the clients right away, right? Like they might be learning inside the firm or their company with their senior level person and saying, is my answer right? So that they start learning how to analyze the information. But we have to empower all levels of the staff to seek and to analyze and to research. Those are going to be the skills that differentiate us from technology.
Who does this training to bring in these people, all right, to handle artificial intelligence? I know the big four probably have those capabilities, correct? But what about the larger, you're going to say something, go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe clarify your what do you mean, who does the training?
First of all, artificial intelligence, a lot of people, a lot of students, they haven't had that at the college level. Okay?
Yeah, I agree.
So, all right, they come into a big four firm and the big four firm says, all right, you're going to get involved in artificial intelligence. Now, to your knowledge, is the big four spending a lot of money training people on artificial intelligence?
So I think the way it actually works is like artificial intelligence happens behind the scenes where it's not necessarily, we're learning a tool that is helping us in a process. So for instance, like data extraction as an example. So in the audit process, we're still going to learn as accountants, like we need to go through minutes, we need to go through contracts, to look for things that could be audit issues. But once you start putting robotic technology into the firm, what it's going to do instead is seek out that information in minutes and contracts and so forth and surface the issues rather than you having to read through thousands and thousands of pages of stuff. You're still going to have to understand what to do when those issues are surfaced. But what it's doing is condensing the time so that I'm not spending wasted time on things that I might miss, might get bored while I'm reading through all this stuff. And the technology is surfacing that information so that now I can take action on it. I can go do research. I can go analyze it and make sure it's a real issue and surface those things to the client. So you would learn the tool for the process, but the process, you still have to understand what to do with the information once it's surfaced.
Did any of the realtors you spoke to, were they concerned about losing their jobs?
Oh, sure. Yeah, a lot of them brought up Zillow as a competitor because, people can go online and do all the things and research and things that, a realtor normally does. So what I was talking to them about is how do you step back in your business, which the most important thing, whether you're an accountant, a real estate agent, or whomever, is your relationship. Like that's what keeps somebody
with the client.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what keeps someone with your business. So if you are just staying behind the computer and that's where you're interested, those types of tasks might start getting automated and you've got to step back and say, how do I differentiate the experience and how do I seek out what my clients want from me so that I am putting together services that they're like, I can't imagine not having you as my accountant because the experience is so different.
Well, what services will they have more time to do, right, now that they have the artificial intelligence helping them, the realtors?
The thing about real estate is it becomes very transactional, and you've got more happening in real estate, and this is also true in accounting with blockchain, of how many things are going to be taken out of human control in what was considered a very transactional relationship. But the key should be that you have a long-term relationship with a client, that it's not just about the one sale of the house. It's about being there for every step of their life cycle, and that you're there for their family members, their friends, and so forth. So what are you going to do on the times that you're not making the sale to change the experience? And how are you going to versus sticking all your information in a computer saying, I need a house for $150,000 in this area. What a computer isn't going to do is have the conversation with you, and a human conversation to say, well, why is that so important to you? And let me understand the $150,000. Like, really seek those answers from a potential client to understand the emotional side of the purchase, so that you know from an individual perspective how you need to serve them differently than another client, so that they feel very safe in the process, that they trust you, and that they want to be with you on every life cycle down the line. So, and that's really what I talk about as far as being a cherished advisor as a CPA, that this isn't about, I'm just going to give you my tax return every year. Okay, well, but any CPA could do that. What am I going to do that's differentiated in the way that I service you and the advice that I give you, that the value that I pay for, I'm like, wow, that was worth it. And I would pay them more if they would do more for me.
For example, meeting with the client before you do the tax return.
Yes.
Meeting more with your clients in real estate. Actually talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's so much lack of interpersonal now. It sounds like this artificial intelligence may require people to learn how to speak to people again.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. So that's where the whole mindful technology intersects, right? Because of what I talk about is people think, because people have gotten addicted to their phones and things like that, they've allowed those things to happen to them rather than take control of their life. And instead of worry about what's being taken away, what learning do I need to do that's different this year? So I may not need learning on artificial intelligence. I might need learning on my soft skills.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm really going to stay ahead 3 years from now, I need to start thinking about, what do I need to do as far as the customer experience, the overall experience from the time of awareness through maturity of that customer. How am I going to serve them at each of those stages, and as a business, not an individual? Because where a lot of CPA firms have gone in the past is you have your sales meeting, they sign the engagement letter, and then one person gets assigned to that client, and then off they go, instead of thinking about, where does the firm intersect with that client at all different stages? And how do you serve the client as a firm, not as a person? And that they know that you've always got their back.
Do you talk to people about artificial intelligence and how it will improve the personal service that we once had with people years ago?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So what I actually talk about a lot, so my grandfather was a CPA, and he was a CPA in the 1930s. And so
I remember that. I was a CPA also. Yeah. We only had APB number 1.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like it's a very different time. Right. And so, through all the stories I heard growing up, because my mom didn't go down that path, but she had always talked about these close relationships he had because he lived in an immigrant neighborhood, and it was all about helping one another to improve their lives. But like you said, once all the FASB rules came along and the IRS rules and everything else, accounts started being pulled away from their clients, because just to keep up with all the regulation, the deadlines and everything else, you didn't have time to actually talk to your client anymore. And this is the gift of technology, that rather than looking at it as a bad thing, it actually takes us back to why we were called trusted advisors in the first place, because we spent the time with the client and we really wanted their business to improve and our business to improve. And it was a cooperation between the two.
When I used to do tax returns, I would always do this. I would spend an hour with the client face to face. I would get to know the client. All right. A lot of times I got to know his family.
Right.
But I would find out a lot about the client, about what his financial situation was. Now I talk to new young CPAs, new young accountants, and their answer is no, they don't sit down and talk to the client. All right. The client just sends them, a package of the information, and that's the extent of their conversation. Right. I mean, do you think interpersonal skills will ever come back to the way they were 20 years ago?
They're going to have to. I mean, so else you become a commodity, right? Like, so if you really want to differentiate your experience, you have to start learning the relationship side. And part of the hard, like I find, because I always ask my audiences, like, do you survey how do you know your clients are even happy? And their answers are, well, they come back. And that's not a happiness measure, right? That's just laziness of not finding someone else to go to because it's too hard to switch accountants.
Right, exactly.
But what they should be doing is actually surveying the clients and saying, and what I talk about is the Net Promoter Score. So Net Promoter is used in a lot of corporations, and it's a measure of customer loyalty. And so
how does it work?
So how you ask the question on a survey is you say, would you recommend me to a friend, family member, coworker? And then they have to rank that on a 0 to 10 scale. And so what happens with Net Promoter is you want to get a 9 or a 10. So that means they'd be a promoter. If they rate you a 7 or 8, they're neutral. So you could lose them. And a 0 to 6 is a detractor. So basically they're not happy and they're probably going to go somewhere else. And then you just ask them, why did you rate me a 9 or a 10 or whatever number that you said? So you want to know why. Or you say, or another question you ask is, what would get me or keep me at a 9 or a 10, that you would like to see from your client experience? So it's a really simple survey to do, but it's important information because our business, no matter what technology happens in the world, will always be based on referrals.
Correct.
Like, it is a human business. So if we are not serving the client the way they want to be served and getting the experience that we want, and we never ask them if we're doing that, then it's hard for us to improve. And so when we get those answers back, then we're like, oh, okay, these are the 3 things we want to really focus on next year and see if we can get our score up from a Net Promoter perspective.
If we had answers back that are not favorable, would you call the client after that in any way to, if you find out from the questionnaire the client's not happy with you,
right? Namely,
you don't keep in touch with them during the year, all right? What would you say? Would you call them up, all right? Or just wait until next year? What would you do?
Well, I don't think keep doing what's not working works.
I honestly still talk to...
Yes.
I do that with our students for the CPA review course. I encourage them to call me. It's interesting. Who don't want to talk to other people, after I speak to them a while, they say, gee, I'm really glad you called me. I don't understand these people. They just don't want to talk to each other anymore. I mean, I'll give you one more example. I went to a football game, Washington Redskins, and it started raining. So everyone came off, and there was about 10 teenagers against the wall, and they were all texting each other. And I said, wait a minute, they're like two inches away from each other. Why can't they talk to each other?
So one thing is, I have watched my children and how they communicate, and it is different, right? Like, technology has trained them in a different way to communicate, but it doesn't mean they're not. You kind of have to go one level deeper to understand how they're communicating. So, and these are our future clients, right? So we're not going to be able to change their makeup as people because that's really how they've learned. But I find it interesting, right? Because they feel like they're collaborating. Like, I'll use an example. One time I saw my children and their cousins.
How old are they, by the way, children?
Well, now I've got an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old, but this was a few years back.
You're too young looking.
Well, thank you.
I thought you were 17 or 18 years old.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay.
I wish. Yeah. No, I don't wish. I like where I'm at in life. Right. But anyway, so the way they were playing this game through this app together, when they would get stuck on a certain level and they'd be sitting side by side playing it, they'd hand the phone over and say, can you get me to the next level? And I was like listening to it. I was like, I never played a game like that because I felt like I had to win every level and so forth. But what it actually taught me was the psyche of they're collaborating in a different way. And I asked my son, I'm like, do you feel like you still accomplished that? And he said, yes. So it wasn't cheating to him. It was like, no, we do this together. We get there together. And so when we're putting technology in the business and understand the psyche of how people have grown up or communicate differently, those are the things I'm talking about with mindful technology is where are they comfortable in communicating and ensuring that we are seeking to understand that we don't want to stress them out more. We want to make sure that we're getting the best out of our people and that we're listening to their experience, not just saying, we've got to go put this in the company and this is the way things have to be. It's like, let's test this. Like, I'll use another example at my yoga studio that I have, which is very traditionally a business that has no technology, but I come from the technology world. So everything is on the cloud because there would be no way for me to run this business with my travel schedule. So one of the things I wanted to implement was Slack because I was getting way too many emails and I just couldn't keep up with it and copied on everything and where they could have really worked together. So Slack, when I put that in, I was talking to my studio manager and another teacher about it. And they're like, oh, we don't want to do this, And I said, look, let's do it for 30 days. If we hate it after 30 days, we'll stop. But let's give it an open-minded shot. Let's figure it out and then tweak our processes based on what we learn. Well, fast forward a few years later to last week, and a conversation started popping up on email. My studio manager said, I think we need to move this conversation to Slack. And I was like, so they understand, it's like, it's like making sure they're part of the process. And then they start seeing the benefit of how you communicate differently. And it's actually changed the whole customer experience in the studio because we put Slack in place, because there's a way for the staff to completely communicate with each other, even when they're not physically in the studio, so that the customers are served when they walk in.
So I am assuming that this is your business, the yoga, but if another business, do you give this advice to other businesses?
Yes.
And then the question is, where do you find time? You're doing a yoga studio. You're out there being a keynote speaker. All right. And I don't know, do you ever take any time off?
Yes, I take time off. Okay. No, but I think it's an important point because I utilize technology for its benefits. I empower my people and not micromanage them. So the biggest thing to me is if I don't have a strong team, I can't do what I want to do. And if we're constantly threatened that someone might take our job or something might take what we're doing, then we're never able to do our next best thing that we want to do in the world. Right. So we always have to be empowering the people around us, even when it's harder sometimes to train people, but to not give them the answer, to let them try to figure it out and then course correct so that you have the availability and space in your schedule to do the things that you want to do. And without technology, I would not be able to have the life that I have, for sure.
I have two quotes from two newspapers, all right?
Okay.
I'd like you to comment very quickly on them, all right? And then I think we will have to say goodbye, part our ways, so you can go to your next venture.
Okay.
All right, here's one. Washington Post said, artificial intelligence could replace 1/3 of the workforce by 2030. What do you think?
I think that 1/3 of the workforce, their skills will change. If anything, the research has supported that there's more jobs created from the technology than less, but they're different jobs. And so we have to be comfortable with learning.
And that's the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Who's responsible for learning new skills? Whose responsibility is that? The company?
Ours.
Oh, the employees.
Yes. I mean, in tandem, a corporation should be providing the opportunities for people to be upskilling and making sure that the learning is available. But we all have to take individual responsibility and not blame the outside world for our circumstances at the end of the day. So
why not? Everyone else does.
I know. Well, that's so. I mean, if really, it's our moment to either reject the information we're hearing or say this is happening. And I need to step back and see how I can play in this game and be a positive part of it in the future and help myself. And I might find things that I like even better. I mean, that's been my career, where I started as an auditor at KPMG and then moved into my own business, had technology executive roles, and now do what I do. Like, I am constantly looking at where's the next opportunity? How do you pivot? How do you take advantage of it? And that's our individual.
Well, that's an entrepreneur spirit.
Yeah, but it's important for us to all know what our purpose in life is and to keep pivoting our career around that to ensure that we're getting that.
That sounds easier said than done to know. A lot of people don't know what their purposes are.
No, so you have to step back and think about it, right? Yeah.
Last comment. This is from MIT Technology Review.
Okay.
All right, which is Mass Institute of Technology. Right. Automation is reducing the need for people in many jobs. All right. Are we facing a future of stagnant income and worsening inequality?
I mean, I don't know if I agree. I mean, I would disagree with that statement, just like the other quote. I think we have to learn. So the World Economic Forum put out a survey this year and a report that said in order to make sure that you're successful in the next 5 years, you'll need 101 days of learning, which means 20 days of learning a year. And you need to be strategic about that learning. It's not just about CPE and compliance and regulatory. It's also about where you need to grow as a person and in your skill sets.
And you, by the way, you advise people of this, correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Amy, you're a super person. You really are. And
well, thank you for having me.
I don't know where you find the time to do all these, okay?
I enjoy what I do. So it doesn't feel like work.
You're not going to get me into the yoga studio.
Well, I won't try.
My wife says you should go for yoga, all right? I don't understand why I have the perfect masculine body, but...
No, what I always tell people is you don't need a flexible body, you need a flexible mind.
That's very deep. I'll have to think. Very deep. Anyway, Amy, thank you very much. We've tried to get you on a long time, and we finally got you on. I want to thank you very much. You really are a super person. Good luck with all your ventures.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And you're very welcome. Hopefully you'll come back. You know, take a good look at this. No, you can't look at this. Listen to this and say, do I want to talk to that guy again? If you do, we are you.
Okay.
Anyway, I want to thank you. Take care and good health to you and good luck with your business.
And
as we end this podcast today, I just want you to know a podcast requires just more than me interviewing people, talking to them, saying cute things maybe occasionally. All right. So, the person that really helps me the most is Rob. Rob is my executive producer, director. And without him, I would not be able to get the guests I do. He helps me with that. And also, all right, he actually interviews them before. So, I just want you to know, in a company, it requires more than one person to run that company, even though one person may be the only person visible. So, Rob Medford, without you, I could not run this podcast. Thank you very much. And I want you to know that. And I think it's good. Bill. You're very welcome. I think people should tell their employees this. Hey, if you want to tell an employee they're doing a lousy job for something, all right, that's great. But you also have to tell them good things about it. It goes hand in hand. Do you agree with that, Amy?
Yes, that's the power of thank you.
The power of thank you. Let me write that down. Anyway, all right. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Once again, I'd like to thank you for being the best part of CPA Review and More with your host, Phil Yaeger. If you have any questions or topics you'd like to hear on the show, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show to share your story, we want to hear from you. Send me an email to the studio at podcast@YaegerCPAReview.com. If you're enjoying the content that we're providing, we'd greatly appreciate it if you'd submit a review to the Apple iTunes podcast app to let us know how we're doing. If you're in the market for a CPA review course or simply want to find out more about the CPA exam and what Yaeger has to offer, check out YaegerCPAReview.com or call our office and we'll answer any questions you may have. The link and the phone number will be in the description of this podcast. Here at Team Yaeger, we're excited to tell you about our new Yaeger CPA Review subscription format. It's the same great Yaeger CPA Review course that you know and love on an all-new month-to-month, no commitment subscription format. Check it out today. Once again, my name's Rob Medford. I'm your executive producer and director here at the Yaeger Studios. And until next time, take care and be audit you can be.